They say nothing truly unexpected ever happens out in the country. Same sun, same dirt, same silence day after day. But that's a lie. Out there, far from the noise of the world, the quiet hides things that shake a man to his core. Sometimes, the thing that finds you in the dark doesn't knock. It limps into your barn, broken and bleeding. And what comes after? Well, no one ever sees that part coming. This story ain't about ghosts or miracles. It's about something far more real, and far more rare. A man lost in his own silence. A stranger carrying a storm behind her eyes. And a horse that walked into their lives like it knew they both needed saving. You think you know where it's going, but I promise you don't. Not until you feel it for yourself. Because healing doesn't always show up with answers. Sometimes it arrives muddy, scarred, and half alive. And when it does, it doesn't knock to ask permission. It simply dares you to care again. So if you've ever lost something, or someone, and thought you were done feeling anything at all, this one's for you. Hello my friends, I'm John, your storyteller from the Backwoods Legend Stories channel. Leave your like and subscribe to the channel. Our story today is, a farmer finds an injured horse in the barn and something strange happens. There was a time when Sam Barrett's ranch echoed with laughter, the kind that sticks to the walls and sneaks into your dreams. But that was a long time ago, before the silence took over. Now, every creak of the floorboards and whistle of the wind feels louder than it should. Sam walks the same worn paths each morning, feeds the same chickens, tends the same fences, but he does it all like a man moving underwater. The world didn't stop spinning after he lost his family, but his world sure did. Sam's wife, Mary, had a voice that could calm storms and a smile that warmed the coldest mornings. She passed away 10 years ago, taken by a drunk driver on a highway that never cared who it hurt. Their son Ethan didn't make it either, just 10 years old. The boy had dreams of riding broncs and raising cattle like his daddy. Sam never talks about them. Not to neighbors. Not to God. Just silence, and a picture framed by the fireplace that he still dusts every Sunday. The house ain't changed much since they left. The curtains still hang just the way Mary liked him. Ethan's boots are still by the door. Sometimes, Sam swears he hears them. Footsteps running down the hallway, the screen door slamming shut. But when he looks, there's nothing. Just an old man standing in a quiet room, clutching memories like they're all he's got left to hold on to. Most folks in town stopped visiting years ago. Sam stopped going to church, stopped coming to town hall meetings, stopped answering when people knocked. The only thing he hasn't quit is the land. He still wakes before the sun, still works his hands raw, still talks to the cows like they're family. And in a way, they are. They don't ask questions. They don't pity him. They just exist, and that's enough for now. You see, grief has a way of carving you hollow, but Sam learned to fill the emptiness with routine. Every post he pounds into the ground is a distraction. Every mile he rides the fence line is one less moment thinking about who's gone. But the loneliness still bites when the wind dies down. And the silence? That's the loudest thing of all. People whispered about him in town. Said he'd gone bitter, maybe crazy. Some said he talks to ghosts, others said he talks to himself. Truth is, Sam just got tired of explaining a pain that words could never do justice. He wasn't angry. He was just done. Done pretending life moved on. Done acting like a new season could grow over that kind of winter. The ranch, once alive with cookouts and neighbors riding in for branding days, now felt more like a shrine. Every gate creak reminded him of Mary's laughter. Every rusted horseshoe nailed to the barn took him back to Ethan's little hands handing him tools. Sam lived in that past, not because he couldn't move on, but because moving on felt like betrayal. Still, the land has its own rhythm. And Sam followed it, day after day. But deep down, something was shifting. A crack forming in the quiet. Maybe it was the way the wind changed that week. Or maybe it was just that kind of silence right before life decides to knock on your door, even if it shows up on 4 legs instead of 2. The storm that night wasn't in the forecast. It rolled in like an uninvited guest. No lightning, just wind and cold rain that cut straight to the bone. Sam stood by the window, watching it soak the fields, hands wrapped around a cup of coffee that had long gone cold. Something about the air felt different. Not dangerous exactly, but unsettled. Like the land itself was holding its breath. At first, he thought it was the wind rattling the barn door. But when it came again, a heavy thud, followed by the distinct snort of an animal, Sam grabbed his coat and flashlight. The kind of sound that doesn't belong on a night like that gets a man's attention, even one as numb as Sam. His boots sank into the mud as he walked toward the barn, flashlight beam cutting through the fog like a knife. The door creaked open, hinges groaning under years of weather and wear. Sam's eyes adjusted slowly, the dim light catching on something large and dark slumped in the corner. A horse. Not one he recognized. Its flanks heaved with exhaustion, and its coat was streaked with mud, sweat, and blood. One leg was scraped raw, and there was a cut near the shoulder that still oozed. But it was alive. Barely. He didn't ask questions, not out loud anyway. There wasn't anyone to answer. Sam just moved slow and steady, like he was approaching a ghost. He reached for a blanket first, then the old med kit Mary had kept in the barn, still tucked behind the feed barrels. His hands remembered what to do, even if it had been years since he doctored anything other than fence posts and rusted gates. The horse didn't fight him. That was the strange part. It just stood there, eyes dull but fixed on Sam, like it had been waiting for him. He murmured soft words he hadn't used in a decade, brushing the dirt from its neck, cleaning the wound with steady hands. The kind of care you give something, or someone, you don't expect to stay. But you do it anyway, because that's just who you are underneath all the rust. By the time he was done, the rain had eased into a mist. Sam leaned against the wall, watching the animal settle into the straw. He knew every ranch within 20 miles, every brand and bridle. This horse didn't belong to anyone he knew, and it wasn't marked. Just a leather cord around its neck, worn thin and tied tight, like someone didn't want it to come back. Sam didn't sleep that night. He sat in the barn with the horse, listening to its breathing and the soft drip of water from the rafters. It felt like the first time in years that something had found its way to him instead of away from him. And somewhere deep inside, where he'd long buried hope, something stirred. He didn't know it yet, but that broken horse hadn't just wandered into his barn. It had brought a story with it. One that was about to turn the quiet world Sam had built into something else entirely. By morning, the fog hadn't lifted. It clung to the hills and trees like a heavy blanket, muffling every sound and slowing every step. Sam opened the barn doors expecting the horse to still be resting, but the stall was empty. Panic didn't hit him all at once. It crept in low and cold. He scanned the pasture, whistled out of habit, and just when he was about to saddle up and search, he saw movement by the tree line. The horse was there, just standing, half in shadow. It turned its head towards Sam, then back to the woods, as if waiting. It should have bolted. It should have run off into the brush, like any spooked animal. But it didn't. It waited. Sam grabbed his coat and followed, boots crunching on the wet leaves, heart beating a little harder than it had in years. Something about this wasn't right, but it also wasn't wrong. They moved through the woods in silence. Sam didn't ask why, and the horse didn't explain. The trail narrowed. snaking between trees gnarled with age. He hadn't walked that far back in months, maybe years. Every step seemed to pull him deeper into something unfamiliar. And then, in a clearing where the sun tried to break through, he saw her, crumpled on the forest floor, motionless, like a shadow that had fallen from the sky. Sam froze. She wasn't a kid, but she wasn't much more than that. Young woman. Dirt on her dress, scratches on her arms, blood dried along her temple. She was alive, barely. He knelt beside her, checking her pulse with the same hands that once held his son's fevered body. Still breathing. Still here. And for reasons he couldn't name, that hit him like a kick to the chest. The horse stood a few feet back, calm, as if its job was done. Sam didn't waste time. He lifted her carefully, surprised at how light she felt. Every step back to the barn felt like he was carrying more than just a body. It felt like he was dragging the weight of fate behind him. The horse followed close, quiet and steady, as if guarding them both from whatever was still out there. By the time they reached the house, Sam's back ached and his mind was racing. He hadn't had a guest in years. Hadn't opened his home to a stranger since before everything changed. He laid her gently on the old couch in the front room, lit the fire, and pulled the quilt Mary had sewn from the chest in the hallway. Funny how memory knows where to go, even after a decade. He cleaned the blood from her head with a damp cloth. Her face, now in the firelight, was softer than he'd first seen. Tired. Hurt. But not broken. Not yet. And something in him, a whisper he thought had died with his family, said she'd come for a reason, even if neither of them understood it yet. Out in the barn, the horse let out a low, steady breath, like it knew its role wasn't over. Not just yet. The first night was quiet, too quiet. Sam sat in his old wooden chair, boots off, eyes fixed on the figure lying under Mary's quilt. The fire crackled, casting shadows on the walls, and for a moment it almost felt like the old days. Almost. But this wasn't his wife or his son. This was a stranger, and Sam didn't know what kind of trouble she might bring with her. By morning she stirred. Eyes fluttered open, green and glassy, scanning the room like she wasn't sure where, or who, she was. Sam didn't say much. He just handed her a glass of water, watched her drink it slowly, and waited. "You're safe," he said, voice low like the wind through a cornfield. She looked at him like she wasn't sure whether to believe it. And to be fair, Sam wasn't sure either. Her name was Emily. That's all she offered at first. No last name. No details. Just a whispered, "Thank you," and a glance toward the window, like she was already thinking about running. Sam didn't press. He knew better than anyone that sometimes silence is a shield. He brought her soup, left it on the table, and stepped back like you do with a wild animal you're not sure you can trust. Over the next couple days, her body healed faster than her words. She ate, drank, even sat out on the porch once or twice, bundled in an old jacket of Sam's. But still, no questions answered. She didn't ask who he was. Didn't ask where she was. Just existed. And Sam, oddly, didn't mind. He had learned to live without stories. But this time, curiosity scratched at the edge of his thoughts like a restless dog at the door. One afternoon, while mending a fence post, he looked up and saw her watching him from the porch. Arms crossed, brows furrowed like she was studying a man from a time long gone. He tipped his hat out of habit. She didn't wave back, but she didn't look away either. It wasn't trust yet, but it was something. That night, she broke the silence. "Why'd you help me?" Her voice was rough, like she hadn't used it in days. Sam stared into the fire, didn't answer right away. "Seemed like the right thing to do," he said finally. That was it. No lecture. No sympathy. Just a man telling the truth in the simplest way he knew how. From that moment on, things shifted. Just a little. She helped clear dishes, fed the chickens one morning, even left a folded note on the table. "Thanks again." Sam didn't respond. But the next morning, there were 2 mugs of coffee on the porch instead of 1. That's how people like them talked, through actions, not words. Still, beneath that fragile peace, Sam knew something was brewing. Emily had the eyes of someone still looking over her shoulder. And Sam? He'd seen enough of life to know that no one ends up unconscious in the woods without a story trailing behind them. A story that eventually catches up. It started with a scar. A small one, barely visible, running just beneath Emily's left wrist. Sam noticed it when she reached for the coffee pot one morning, hands still trembling from sleep. He didn't ask about it. Didn't have to. People carry stories in places they think no one will look. And that scar spoke louder than any confession could. He just poured the coffee and handed her the cup like he hadn't seen a thing. Over the next few days, Emily moved more freely. Her limp faded, color returned to her face, and that faraway look in her eyes softened, just a little. She helped in the garden, watched the cattle from the fence, and even laughed once when a chicken chased Sam halfway across the yard. It was brief. Barely there. But it was the kind of sound that makes a man pause and hope. One evening, after dinner, she stayed at the table while Sam cleaned up. "I wasn't running," she said suddenly, voice barely above the hum of the old fridge. He stopped drying the plate in his hands, looked at her, waited. "I was leaving," she added, as if correcting the air around her. Sam nodded, didn't press. He knew that when a person finally starts talking, the worst thing you can do is interrupt the flow. She told him about a man named Darren, never called him by anything else. Said he had a temper that crept in like smoke, slow at first, then choking. Said she stayed too long. Said she left too late. There were no tears, just pauses. Long, deep ones. Like she had to pull each word from a locked box inside her chest. Sam just listened, not with pity, but with presence. Sometimes, that's the only medicine that works. That night, Sam didn't sleep much. He kept thinking about the weight of her words, how pain sticks to people like burrs in tall grass. He'd never been the kind to rescue anyone. Hell, he couldn't even save his own family, but somehow, Emily being there made him feel like maybe, just maybe, not everything had to end in silence. The next morning, Emily brought in firewood without being asked. Later, she mended an old flannel of his with thread she found in Mary's sewing tin. Little things. Quiet things. But they built something in the space between them. Something not quite trust, but not quite fear anymore either. Sam still hadn't asked how she ended up in the woods. She hadn't explained the horse. But now he knew her name, her story, at least part of it, and that was more than he ever expected to hear again from someone at his table. Still, he could feel it in his bones. The past doesn't just let go because you walk away from it. And out there, beyond the fence line and the safety of routine, life was beginning to whisper again. And whispers have a way of turning into noise. It had been weeks since Sam last stepped into town. He didn't much care for grocery stores or gas stations anymore, but the feed store still got him through the seasons. That morning, Emily asked if she could ride along. Said she needed air. Sam hesitated. Something in his gut pulled tight, but nodded. Maybe he wanted the company. Or maybe he just wanted to believe they could be seen together without questions. The truck ride was quiet. Country roads rolling under faded tires, trees thinning as they neared the edge of town. Sam glanced at Emily once, hair tied back, sleeves pulled down, eyes distant like she already regretted the trip. But she didn't turn back. And when they pulled up to the store, she even managed to smile. Small, brave. The kind of smile people wear when they want to pretend nothing's wrong. Inside, the usual small-town eyes did what they do best, watched. Not loud. Not obvious. Just enough to make Emily shift her weight, and Sam grit his teeth. Marlene, the cashier, offered a tight-lipped hello. Old George asked, "Who's the girl?" With that slow curiosity that's always polite on the surface but sharp underneath. Sam didn't answer. Just paid in cash and walked out with a nod. Back at the truck, Emily said nothing. But the color in her face was gone again. She looked out the window the whole way home, fingers tracing a circle on her jeans. Sam wanted to say something. Anything. But he knew better. You don't stop a fire with a bucket of words. You wait for the wind to shift. By the time they got back, the silence between them had grown roots. Emily went straight to the porch and sat alone, while Sam unloaded the feed. That night, dinner was quiet again. No stories. No laughter. Just the scrape of forks and the ticking of the old wall clock. The kind of quiet that feels like something's coming, even if you don't know what. The next day, Buck Harris, an old friend of Sam's, stopped by unannounced. "Heard you've got company," he said, one eyebrow raised. Sam just stared. Buck didn't push, but the seed was planted. And in a town like theirs, once a seed like that hits the ground, it grows fast. Later that evening, Sam sat on the porch, watching the sun dip behind the hills, coffee in hand. Emily joined him, but said nothing. They just sat there, two people waiting for a storm they couldn't yet see, but could damn sure feel on the wind. The knock came just after sundown. Sharp. Measured. Not like a neighbor. Not like someone who needed a favor. Sam was in the kitchen, washing a pot, when the sound hit him square in the chest. Emily froze at the table, spoon halfway to her mouth. And right there, in the flicker of the old lamp, her face lost what little color it had. She knew that knock. And so did the silence that followed it. Sam opened the door slow, hand resting on the frame like he was bracing for a punch. Standing there was a man, broad shoulders, dark coat, and eyes that looked like cold steel. "I'm looking for someone," he said, voice smooth but too sure of itself. He didn't say Emily's name. He didn't have to. The way she backed into the corner of the room told Sam everything he needed to know. The man's name was Darren. Sam asked no questions. He didn't invite him in. Just stepped out onto the porch and shut the door behind him. The two men stared each other down under the porch light, years of pain and pride between them. "She's not yours anymore," Sam said quietly. Darren tilted his head, like he'd heard that before, but didn't believe it. "She left without a word. I just wanted to talk." But the fire in his eyes said otherwise. Inside, Emily paced like a caged bird. Her hands trembled, and the breath in her chest came in short bursts. She knew Darren too well. Knew what came next if he didn't get what he wanted. Outside, Sam stayed still as stone. "You should go," he said. "Ain't nothing here for you." Darren smiled. That kind of smile a snake makes before striking. "I always get what's mine," he muttered before walking off into the night, boots crunching the gravel like thunder. That night, no one slept. Sam sat on the porch with his shotgun across his knees, eyes on the tree line. Emily stayed curled on the couch, wrapped in Mary's quilt, staring at the flickering fire like it might hold her together. Outside, the wind picked up. Coyotes howled in the distance. But neither of them heard it. The real danger wasn't out there. It had already knocked on their door. The next morning, Sam found tire tracks leading down the ridge road. Darren had been watching. Waiting. Maybe planning. Emily sat on the porch with her arms wrapped tight around her knees. "He doesn't stop," she whispered. "He never stops." Sam didn't speak. Just walked to the barn and started prepping the horses, like a man who knew a storm was coming and wasn't about to wait it out. The air had changed again. Not like a summer storm or a hard freeze, but something deeper. Like the past had finally caught up, and there was no more hiding. Sam had spent a decade avoiding grief. Emily had spent years running from fear. But now it was all right there on the front porch, daring them to stand their ground. And for the first time in a long while, Sam wasn't sure if he could fix what was coming, or if he even should. Sam had been through storms before. He'd watched fences torn down by wind, cattle swept away by floods, and even buried his own family under cold, unforgiving skies. But nothing rattled him like this, standing in his own kitchen, heart pounding, wondering if keeping Emily there was saving her, or putting them both in danger. That morning, her eyes told him she was ready to leave. But he wasn't ready to let her go. Emily packed a small bag. Just a few clothes, a book she found on the shelf, and a note she never let Sam read. "You've done enough," she said softly, eyes wet but steady. "I can't ask you to fight this." Sam didn't answer right away. He just looked out the window at the horse standing calm in the pasture, the same one that had brought her here. Maybe fate had a cruel sense of humor. Or maybe it just liked circles. He saddled the horse without a word. Helped her tie the blanket across the saddle. Every motion felt like betrayal. Of her, of himself, of everything that had changed in the last few weeks. Emily tried to smile, but it cracked before it reached her eyes. "You gave me more than most ever have," she whispered. And Sam, for the first time in years, didn't know how to speak. His hands knew work. His eyes knew land. But his heart? That part had been silent too long. Just before she mounted up, he stopped her. "You're not alone in this," he said, voice shaking in a way that surprised them both. "You don't have to run anymore." Emily stared at him, wind tugging at her hair, eyes searching as like they were looking for a place to land. "Then tell me what to do, Sam," she said. "Because I don't know if I can survive him again." That night, they sat in the barn, just like that first night. No fire. No words. Just presence. The kind that fills space better than any sentence ever could. Sam knew the law wouldn't help much. Knew that sometimes, justice was a ghost that passed over places like theirs. But deep down, he also knew the choice wasn't really about Emily. It was about who he still was, and whether he could live with himself if he let her walk out the gate alone. He thought of Mary. Of Ethan. Of all the moments he'd let pass him by, too afraid to hold on. And suddenly, the thought of watching Emily disappear down that dusty road felt like losing them all over again. Maybe that's what second chances look like. Not dramatic, not loud. Just a man deciding to do the right thing, even if it costs him everything. The next morning, Sam poured 2 mugs of coffee. Set one across from him at the table, like always. Emily walked in with that same hesitant step, unsure whether she still had a place there. Sam looked up, calm as ever. "We've got work to do," he said, like it was any other day. But in that small sentence lived a promise. One that said you don't run alone anymore. And outside, in the soft light of morning, the old horse pawed the dirt, like he already knew what came next would change everything. Dawn came quiet, as if the world itself was holding its breath. Emily stood at the edge of the porch, bag by her side, eyes fixed on the dirt road that stretched into the unknown. Sam leaned against the doorway, coffee in hand, the warmth in the mug the only thing steady in that moment. They hadn't spoken much since the decision was made. Sometimes words just don't fit the weight of what needs saying. The horse stood saddled, just like the first day she come out of the woods, wounded, scared, unsure. But now, she was standing tall, scars healed, eyes clearer. "You sure about this?" Sam asked, voice calm but tight. Emily nodded, but there was hesitation in her breath. "I need to see this through," she said. "But I'm not walking away from what you gave me. Just pressing pause." Sam helped her mount the horse in silence. She looked down at him, hands gripping the reins like they might fall apart. "I was broken when I got here," she said, voice cracking. "You didn't fix me. You just let me be seen." Sam looked up, eyes glassy, and managed a faint smile. "We all got pieces missing, Emily. Some of us just hide it better than others." As she rode off down the path, dust rising behind her, Sam stood there for a long time. Watching, remembering, not grieving this time, but feeling something he hadn't felt in years. A strange kind of peace. Not because things were fixed, but because he had finally chosen to care again. He hadn't realized how starved he was for connection until she gave him one. Weeks passed. The fields bloomed. The barn echoed again, not with laughter, but with life. Sam found himself talking more to the animals, even humming while he worked. One afternoon, he found an envelope in the mailbox. No return address. Inside, a photo of Emily standing beside a new horse, a small shelter behind her, and a note. "I'm building something. Thought you'd like to know." Sam smiled. Not wide, not loud, but real. He placed the photo on the mantel next to the one of Mary and Ethan. Not to replace them. Just to say the story wasn't over. That even the most broken things can lead to something whole. And every now and then, just before sunset, Sam would sit on that porch with 2 mugs. One for him, and one for whoever might need it next. Sometimes, the strongest bonds are forged not through blood, but through brokenness. Sam didn't go looking to save anyone. Truth is, he barely knew how to save himself. But when that horse limped into his life, and brought Emily with it, he was forced to open doors he'd kept locked for years. And in doing so, something unexpected happened. He remembered what it meant to live. It's funny how a moment, just one, can tear down years of silence. A single knock on the barn door. A quiet look over morning coffee. A half smile at sunset. Those things matter. They're the soft stitches that begin to mend the deepest wounds. Sam and Emily didn't fix each other. They simply showed up. And sometimes, that's enough to change everything. So if you're carrying weight no one sees, or feel like your story ended before it really began, remember this. Healing might come on 4 legs, or with a voice you didn't expect. But when it comes, don't look away. Don't shut the door. Because even in the quietest corners of the world, life still has a way of calling you back. We have reached the end of our story. Leave your like, share, comment, and subscribe to the channel. See you next time.